Ago, when the world was a simpler place, young street racers were driving their girls to the local drive-in in something like a Ford Cortina, Mini Cooper S or a hot-up Holden. At the weekend, the same machines would do battle in the local touring car series. Today, a trip down memory lane as the Group N machines, as in N for nostalgia, ride again. Jackie Stewart reminisces.
Everything from a Ford Falcon to a Mini is on the line for the two parts of the saloon car race, here combined into one high-speed scramble.
What tremendous racing that was in those days. And remember, when these guys were driving cars, it was Grand Prix drivers that drove them. They were sometimes doing a Grand Prix and one of those races in the same day. So touring car racing, as it's called, had a great history. The Mini Cooper, for example, driven by British aristocracy. Sir John Whitmore won the British Championship in a Mini Cooper. Was he spectacular? And then you look at a Galaxy. Well, a man like Jack Brabham drove a Galaxy. Then you would look at other cars driven by Frank Gardner from Australia as well. He drove a Falcon. And then you would come to something like this, a Lotus Cortina. What special memories that brings for me. Great Jim Clark and I used to drive the factory Cortinas. They were in two wheels, sometimes one wheel. They were certainly on these wheels more than they were on four wheels. Tremendous challenge to drive. And you know, those cars today are worth more money than they were when they were first brought out. So the nostalgia, the history that's associated with this type of motorsport will go on forever. Group N here in Australia is healthy and well.
It certainly is, Jackie. It's a classic car here that people really do get behind. It's spectacular, it's fast. Of course, the point that you made there, I think, is so important. 6 laps, a race distance, 23 kilometres. That in your day, I mean, you would drive up to 4 races at any given time. You couldn't really imagine Cross, Centre, Mansell and company doing that today.
No, I don't think so at all, but I think it's lovely that those cars are here at the Grand Prix because it's a part of the heritage of motorsport. It's great to think back that the Grand Prix drivers used to drive cars like this. It wasn't just a question of specialising in single-seater racing cars. It was a very colourful way to see people motor race, and of course it was very spectacular. No warm-up lap, this is straight into the green light.
Okay, away they go. The American Falcon, that's the white and blue car. The Mustang with the white, with the red and blue stripe comes in behind him. Then another Falcon will pick him up for you in a moment. But off the line very quickly was John Mann. He really got off the line. Robert Tweedy is there too. And Bill Meekey, they're looking good. Here comes the gaggle now as they sort themselves out through the S's. And look what's behind there, a favourite old Holden, in behind the Mini.
Well, Bill Meek there in the Falcon with the white and red stripes down it. He's really in a good position there. I thought it quite busy there in that first corner. That's Bill Meek. He comes from Perth. He's in the airline business. These Fords really conquered motor racing for a long time over in Europe. Dan Gurney was another great American driver who drove in touring car racing, as we used to call it.
Robert Tweedy leads him around. The Mustang gets a little sideways of Johnny Mann in beside him. And as they come down Pub Corner here, you can see from the nice low angle, they really do get some nice attitudes. But they're sitting nicely on the road. Nobody had any drama so far. And there's usually a great attrition in this race because once the tyres and the brakes start to go off a little, Jackie, they do become a handful.
Well, that was one of the big things about touring car racing in the past, particularly at a place like Brabham Straight. Look at the Mustang coming through there. He's putting a lot under braking right there. Now, whether he'll be good for the next few corners under braking is another matter. And that's what all of us used to have to remember, because those cars are heavy, they're going quite quickly, a lot of power there for their day. And of course, with that, the braking power just wasn't in them, so you had to be very delicate with brakes. It was a question of going quick at the beginning and losing it at the end.
Johnny Mann, one of the most experienced in this class of racing in Australia, doing a great job here. My memories, of course, of a Ford Mustang go back to Pete Gagan. Never have I ever seen anybody race a Mustang. I guess Alan Moffat with a fastback and Pete Gagan had some of the great duels in Australian motor racing. But now Johnny Mann loses the lead again to Robert Tweedy. Tweedy fighting back with the Falcon, doing a pretty good job. So nothing in 1, 2 or 3. Look at the Minis coming through.
Well, that was the great thing about that kind of racing. The Minis were always up there, and there's a Lotus Cortina right there. To get a Lotus Cortina running quickly, you really got to get it up onto 2 wheels. He never did do well in 4 wheels.
I remember reading Jim Clark's life story, the late great Jim Clark. One of the favourite things he said in motor racing was when he got behind the wheel of a Lotus Cortina, he really did love to drive them.
Well, it was a way for all of us to relax a little bit. I drove a variety of cars. I drove a Ford Anglia at one time. I remember in the Tourist Trophy race, I drove Jaguar 3.8s. I drove Minis along with Paddy Hawkford, John Fitzpatrick, as well as John Whitmore, and Christabel Carlisle was a terrific lady driver who used to beat all of the men, and we used to race against Graham Hill and Jaguars, Roy Salvadori and people like Jack Sears. Really, it is a nostalgic form of motorsports.
Wayne Thompson doing a great job in the Mini number 46, just holding out there behind him. His running partner getting a little sideways, all the way with a ripple strip. It's almost as high as the Mini. That was Henry Draper. Starting to sort themselves out now at the end of the straight. Fantastic array of machinery here, though. And Jackie, when you consider people have got to chase parts up, they've got to... There's an old Valley. I mean, that's a classic old Australian car, that one, the world's ugliest car, and that thing is half a rocket ship. Yeah. But I mean, just to see it racing is great because it was part of our early motor racing history.
Well, exactly, and there's a galaxy right there. That type of motor racing, I think there's a place for it, and the preparation and the love and dedication that these people put into their motor cars to go racing.
What about this? Now, what about that for a motor car? Look at the styling of that. They used to have little waving hands and puppy dogs that bounced in the back and opera house cushions and all those sort of things.
Well, he's still finding it a little bit of a handful as he comes, and the long shadows grow over this lovely racetrack at Adelaide. I think it's a nice... Oh, and that's a head-on.
Car 70 goes in pretty hard. That's Brett Reeves in car 70, the Holden EH. Well, he's remodeled that one. The Southern Cross all over the roof and a mess in front.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's the right thing for him to be doing. I think whoops, it is. Is he going to try and rejoin? And the Valiant's up there in front.
Yeah, Robert Tweedy doing a terrific job out in front. He's lost the lead a couple of times, fought back. And Johnny Mann, as I said in the Mustang, is one of the most experienced drivers in Australia in this class. He's been around Mustangs for a while, but he's finding it pretty hard to keep in touch at the moment. Tweedy gets the horsepower going down the straight. Car looks nicely balanced. Bill Meekey is the car in third spot at the moment, but here's our leader, Robert Tweedy. John Mann sits in behind him.
Using a lot of road, all of these cars. You know, this is only a 6-lap race, and we've done 3 of them now, but we're on lap 3, but it's a question of trying to keep the brakes right, and I think you'll get some temperature going up here. I remember when I gave to Australia, and the Keegan boys were racing cars just the same colour as that Mustang that's tight into second place right now, beautifully prepared and turned out very aggressive.
Pete Gagan and the duels that he had in Australia with Alan Moffat, who had that very famous red Coca-Cola Mustang, and of course Bob Jane in the Chevy Camira, and then the Chevy Novas. I mean, there was just marvellous touring car races, particularly at Bathurst, the circuit when these cars came into their own, and Warwick Farm, a circuit you knew so well.
Yeah, I came over to Warwick Farm, and it was at that time, of course, I got to know the Keegans and a lot of your Australian racing drivers, and I came to do the Tasman Championship, and it was this kind of motor racing. And Bob Jane, I remember when he came over to Europe and did very well in British touring car racing, really set the cat amongst the pigeons. When Janey came over, he was a very aggressive racing driver, driving for Jaguar at that time.
He brought that wonderful lightweight E-Type Jaguar back to Australia with so much success. That was a great car.
Well, those cars have come here to the Grand Prix, and I think it's wonderful that the organisers of the Grand Prix have seen fit to include them in this racing program. I think it does need this kind of historic racing to demonstrate that everything's still going within motorsport, and it's no good of just looking at it as a modern sport. It does have a heritage, it does have something to look back upon, and here we have the privilege of seeing it live with those cars coming back to bring a lot of the people who are around here watching this race the memories that they remember seeing as young people.
No doubt about that. Look at the legs Tweedy's Falcon, though, has on Mann's Mustang there as they go down the Brabham Straight. He really has pulled out maybe 2 or 3 lengths there, just in sheer horsepower.
And then it's been caught back up again under braking. Look at that.
Yeah, man, really good on the brakes, isn't he? The Mustang, a much better car there. Gets right up behind him now, man. Gets a little twitchy in the tail, puts some pressure on Tweedy. Tweedy holds him out, though. It's certainly got the grunt down low.
Oh, yeah, and he's gone a little bit wide in the Mustang. He lost a little bit of time there. It's a question of being able to keep it in shape. But really, they're both driving very well, and both driving very aggressively, and he's got his indicator out.
So Johnny Mann in the Mustang now just throws it back on the start-finish line. He really can't, he got close enough then, but he can't get close enough on a straight where he could perhaps take some advantage of the Falcon's horsepower. It's certainly got far more of that when it gets onto the straight bits. It looks all right through there too.
The Falcon was more of a rally car at one point. It was not so much a race car, and then it was seen to have the right balance, the weight, the power and everything else, and then got into racing. The Galaxy was the first big car to come in. And there's a Mustang, that's in the Alan Mann colours, and the little Cortina behind it there. The Cortina really was a lot of fun. Colin Chapman created that thing for Ford, and boy did it have a lot of success. It really put that car on the market, and it was the first major manufacturer over there who really showed off an affordable car that was a people's car to be a really competitive car.
Well, we saw a lot of them in Australia too. I remember Pete Gagan driving the black one. I think was the first one in Australia, if my memory serves me right, but there was a whole bunch of people raced Lotus Cortinas in Australia with a lot of success.
I came over to Australia in 1964 to drive a Lotus Cortina at Sandow in a 12-hour race, which was won by an Alfa Romeo. Thank God it broke down, my car. It was such a handful round there. But I remember coming out, and Roger Ward, the great Indianapolis driver, was driving in that race as well. I think I drove with Graham Lawrence, who was a New Zealand driver.
They have a very little pretty Ferrari Dino in the Tasman series, a lovely car. Chris Eamon's car, I think it was, an ex-Chris Eamon car.
Oh, the Tasman in those days was great fun. All of us used to come out and have a great time.
So here we go now, last lap, so he's going to do it. Robert Tweedy, he'll be very pleased with this because a lot of two to go, is there? A lot of people really thought that Johnny Mann would run away with this race, but Tweedy has got the car handling well and stopping very, very well, and certainly got a lot of power. Just lets it drift out there. Same thing with Mann. He just can't get close enough, Jackie, to get in contact.
No, he's just not going to be there. This is the last lap they're on right now, and as long as he doesn't make any errors, he should be okay. The main straight under braking is the only real place that the Mustang seems to have an opportunity to do it. And Bill Meek is back there in third position, and the other Falcon in pretty good shape. Lotus Cortina again in the gold and red colours of the Alan Mann racing team. John Whitmore won the European Championship in a car of that colour combination. They had the stripes at front just the same way as that one has. You see the corporal stripes there. It was always an identification mark of who the driver was as they shoulder each other round there.
No doubt about that. There's my favourite Valiant. It comes round the corner as they blast their way up to the straight for the last time. And of course there is a Lotus Cortina in this race that they're saying that Jackie actually raced in the United States. We're trying to confirm that because it's a car that he's got fond memories of. And that might just be the car we're looking at now. There's the Valiant, fabulous thing, the Valiant. Cameron Tilley's done a great job with that. Saw it race in Sydney. It is a handful. Little Mini, weren't they? A fantastic car. 48, which is Frank Dartell. You can see Frank doing a great job. He's got the Lotus Cortina all over the back of him. He can't find a way through and gets it sideways and snappy in the tail. And that's all the Little Mini needed. Shuts the door again. What a great last lap and a great dice this is. The Little Mini hanging on. The Lotus Cortina has more power, but the Mini now still in front. You'll watch the Cortina, you'll line him up and try and bail out on the end of the straight and get him under brakes, but I wouldn't think he'd get the Mini under brakes. It'll be sensational at the end of the straight. Here we go. Here's the leader. We'll take the checkered flag for the win. Robert Tweedy, fantastic job. Congratulations, well driven, beautifully prepared car. Johnny Mann was expected to win it. Bill Meekey will come in third. Pretty lonely drive there, but look at this battle going on back here. Little Mini in the Cortina. What a dice this has been. Peter Burchell in the Cortina, throwing everything he can. There's 4th, 5th and 6th coming across the line. Plenty of Mustangs in action here today. Oh dear, the memories come back of the 60s. What great touring car racing it was. 20 Man, Meekey, Heath and Leo. They are the top 5 for you in the Fortune historic touring car race here in Adelaide.